session of the Growth and Scaling Roundtable. We've got some amazing guests in the green room, standing by, waiting to talk to all of you.
In today's world, there's more and more opportunity to have a hybrid in between both of those.
Your job isn't to get into the industry to get rich. Your job is to get into the industry to support and provide the best service you can.
Listen, discover, explore. I mean, it's exactly what I tell the brands that we open retail stores for, right?
Hey, welcome back to another session of the Growth and Scaling Roundtable. I am so excited today because today we're hitting a topic that a lot of people hate to talk about, and that is how do I kill products in my business that really aren't the most profitable products anymore. This is kind of an ego game in a lot of ways, and we're going to talk about why it's so important to throw the ego away. Stop thinking that you have to keep providing a service that people aren't really needing as much anymore, and move into the realm of either enhancing that product or bringing on something that's going to do better and be more profitable for you and your service and your company. And I brought an expert in to talk with me about the topic. So first, let's bring him in. Vahid, will you tell us who you are and what do you do?
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. I'm a fractional CPO. I've been doing this for almost a decade, and I've led many teams, worked at many companies with many products. A lot of them exited, a lot of them failed, and some of them are publicly traded right now.
I love it.
I've touched a lot of products.
You know, you're a unique personality type because a lot of people really struggle with product development. Why do you think that is, first of all?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I like this saying that every person is a different type of person. Like,
right?
we're all an N of one. So I'm not really sure why other people would struggle with it. And also I always struggle with it. So like struggle is just a constant.
Right.
My main thing is generally people overcomplicate it. It's not that complicated.
I think you're right there.
It's just basic principle down. Like good product managers always start from goal down.
Right.
So if not that, then you're a little too low level. Maybe you don't actually know how to go up. Maybe there's generally emotions involved. There's generally like fear involved in not going somewhere else. I tend to believe it's not lack of information and it's not malice. It's generally
it's funny because you say that and I brought up ego in the intro. I didn't even, they're the same thing pretty much, right? Like it's like the emotion connected to the product. Like we launched our whole business off this product. There's no way we're getting rid of it. What is wrong with that mindset?
I mean, that's a change resistance mindset. Like you will just lose in that situation. Like the only constant is change, and change is going to happen to you in ways you don't get to predict. That's the nature of change. So this problem shows up for different companies in different ways. So like if you're a single product company and the product's not working, you have a product market fit problem. Like that's a way larger problem than like this tiny thing doesn't work. Sometimes it's positioning. Sometimes it's how you're packaging the product. Sometimes it's your channel, it's your pricing. Sometimes it's the products. And like there's a lot of places where the problem could lie, and the problem tends to have roots everywhere. It's generally not one pinpoint you solve.
Agreed.
But for companies that have a single product and something's not working, it's a product market fit problem.
Right.
And it will show up in your metrics, assuming you're tracking the right metrics. The right metrics are not all metrics. That's another complication. You know what I mean? We track everything.
That's everything. Powerful right there.
Yeah, it's like the right metrics are a few metrics. Like the health metrics of a product. This is one of the main questions I ask folks when I first talk to them or I'm doing an audit. I'm like, all right, what are the company's health metrics? They say it. I'm like, what are your department's health metrics? And then the answer should change. It must change. If it's the same, there's some issue. And then what's a product's health metrics? And it's not revenue, for example. You know what I mean? It's generally
Right.
like activation rates and churn and retention and like whatever the main value of the product is. If it's a piece of content, how many times they actually like viewed that content. So like
Right.
those will be the engagements. So it's showing up somewhere that this is not working. Now,
Totally.
killing a product is a conclusion. So diagnosing the right thing is a whole different way.
True.
So I can
All
I can
right,
dig
let's
into
dive
all
into
of these,
that.
but like I'll I'll let you lead me.
Yeah, no, I mean, before coming on the show, I kind of came up with these 5 things to consider when you're deciding whether or not to kill a product. And
Right.
and really you've already touched on most of them. It's product performance, know your metrics, what are you watching for, what should you be watching for, all that kind of stuff. I feel like a very strong second is what are your customers saying about it? If your customers love it, but they're maybe frustrated about a little piece of it, that's fixable. You don't need to kill your product at that point. But if your customers are saying, man, that sucks, I really like this other thing, why are you even offering it? Is it
Right.
scalable? If it's not scalable, neither is your business.
Right.
Market demand, are there people asking for it still? Is it something that solved a problem during COVID, but now it's just not a big deal? You're probably not going to make a lot of money selling masks right now, but you could have during COVID. And can it be improved upon? Like, is it still malleable enough that you can fix it? So let's dive into the first thing. You've already been touching on it. Product performance. What kind of metrics matter? I mean, you said keep it down to 2 or 3 metrics that you're really watching. What do you mean by that?
So this like product managers are like lawyers. Everything depends. So like we generally should not give a straight answer. I post a lot. I'm like, here are the 3 things you could do. And then if you read the bottom of the post, I'm like, but it depends on 50 things. So like this is a reduction. So if I were
Right.
to reduce it, like one of my favorite metrics is the pirate metrics models, like acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, referral.
Okay.
That's just your stack. So this is a general thing. No framework's correct. If you're diehard about a framework, you're missing something. So like take the pieces that make sense.
Right.
But the main ones for me, like acquisition is not really something like product can influence, but you shouldn't really necessarily build features for acquisition. There are ways to market with features. Those are strategies. And they're never really like, they don't live forever. They're not evergreen. They're short.
Interesting.
So to me, product really starts from activation out. So
Right.
you have activation. The revenue part is where they're actually experiencing the value. So for Airbnb, it'd be like a reservation booked. That's the definitive point that like something happened. That's a transaction, or like in marketplace terms, that's liquidity happening. In a streaming site, it's a content piece viewed. So like it really depends on how you're going. In like the days of LLMs, it's a conversation had, or like conversation complete, or a session complete. So that's the revenue piece. How you price it, that's a different bit. But the one thing, the metric I like the most, and it's an output of everything, you can't work on it directly, it's always retention. Are you retaining people? You know what I mean? And retention, you can cut retention in many ways. Generally, it's like, are they still a user? Like, are they still paying?
Right.
That's a revenue retention. You can have engagement retention. You can have so many things based on like, this person had this kind of the specific pattern of usage. Is that declining or is that increasing? Those are all retention mechanisms.
I love it.
So looking at the metrics, trying to figure out, should you kill this product? First of all, if activations don't have acquisition and activation's an issue, you have a demand problem. That's when you're like, was this a COVID company?
That's a different problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, is your positioning off, or like, that, like, look at the surface area and see if there's anything with the surface area. That is only the case if your retention's already high. Whoever came in loves it, staying, working, like, using it, just raving reviews, and occasionally really angry reviews. Like, angry reviews are good for you. It's like they cared enough to be angry at you, because usually they just leave. But if you're not acquiring and you're not retaining, all hands on deck. You're on fire. You know what I mean?
Time to rebuild the ship while you're flying, right?
Like if the board hasn't fired you, they're talking about it. You just don't know about it. You know what I mean? Like if that's happening and they have a line of sight, you're gonna see
That's very
this. It's
funny.
gonna hit you like a train.
So back up there for just a second then, because I love that you separated those things. I love that you're, I do feel like I agree with you 100% there, that retention is a key metric you should be watching. And a lot of people might say, I don't really have, I'm not a SaaS company. I don't have a monthly recurring product. I don't have this, but are they buying from you again? Like, how do you help companies that are maybe a service or something like that, where they're feeling like, this is irrelevant to me, Vahid? I don't get what you're saying there.
Right. So let me back up. I want to come back to this, but let me back up. We can talk about a metric and where it is and what number it is and like where you should panic.
Right.
But the conclusion is you should panic if users are indifferent about you. If you're still getting feedback, that's a good thing. If they're still staying, if they're still doing something, that's okay. But if you just don't hear from them, like if you hit them up and there's nothing, you're testing all these like transactional emails and notification mechanisms and like the anti-churn mechanism, all those, and nothing's happening, they're indifferent about you. Like anger's good, love is good, indifference is death. So like
that's really funny.
This is a wrap up of like what metrics matter. When it comes to retention, it's simply how much CAC do you want to incur all the time?
Sure.
Even if you're not on a SaaS model. Let's say this is an agency and finite 6-month contracts. Okay.
Yeah.
This contract ended. First of all, the retention mechanism. So it wouldn't be perfect retention. First of all, did they come back? Problems tend to come back. Let's assume you're like a branding agency. I'm just like making it super simple and accessible.
Right.
You're a branding agency. Good companies rebrand every 3-4 years. Assuming they're still growing, they refresh everything 3-4 years. Did they come back to you? That's a very long feedback loop. That's hard. A simple
but it's
thing.
Pretty darn telling.
100%. A simple thing is you get CSAT, customer satisfaction. Did you like this? Like, don't need to give them don't need to give them a giant report to be like, spend 4 days writing it. No, just did you like it? 1 to 5, what's up? And 2 is NPS. Would you recommend us? This is just before you lose touch.
Yeah.
So those are leading. All right. Would this person like come back to us again? And then for service-based companies or anything that's like project-based, so like retention is not inherent, referral is probably the main channel you run on. Like that's probably your main acquisition channel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't run ads and be like, we're the best branding agency. Well, you're not. Like there are a lot of other ones and everyone's being dethroned to the point that I don't think there is a throne. So
I agree with that too.
The customers that loved you, they're going to keep coming back and word of mouth is going to happen. Then they'll post about you, they'll talk to you, to their investors and all the WhatsApp groups they're in. That's how referral engine works. Like the word of mouth channel. If a customer, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's a lot of people out there listening too that don't have a good affiliate program or any way to incentivize those referrals.
Right.
First of all, I would say to what you just said that if you're getting referrals without an affiliate program, you're killing it. Like you're doing something really, really right. Right. Second of all, if you don't have one, you need to create one right now. Like there is no better marketing channel than your customers. And if your customers are willing to talk about you to other people, those are slam dunk client acquisitions that cost you very little. And it's something you have to be implementing right now in your product development and in your marketing. Get those customer referrals, and which is our whole second topic of customer feedback. Vahid, when you're working with clients to develop that customer feedback loop that you just talked about, how often what are you telling them to do? Like, are they doing a survey? Are they doing calls? Like, how are they getting that feedback so they know that they're raving fans still, or if they're willing to talk about you to someone else?
The simple answer is yes. So all the mechanisms.
Right.
The point is there are different types of feedback, and sorry if I keep jumping up and down. I
Oh
have
no,
very
you're
severe
totally
ADHD
good.
and I can't sit still for a second.
Totally
That's just
good.
me. Feedback comes in multiple dimensions. So one is observed feedback that the user doesn't know they're being observed.
Yeah.
That's all the analytics tools and instrumentation, and you actually sit on dashboards all the time. That
Right.
tends to be the most honest feedback. That's quantitative. You just don't know why. The why is missing. And the why is really the leverage you need to figure out how to make strategic decisions. So you get the why from in-person discovery feedback. Not in
Right.
person, but like one-on-one kind of thing, or in a panel. But you
Right.
basically take a chunk of their time, you prep with a bunch of questions, and then the questions that are important are the questions you actually think of right out the fly and ask those. So you
Right.
have main questions. There's a bunch of different methods to this. Teresa Torres has a brilliant book on this. She's basically a thought leader on this.
Right.
And then in the middle, you have surveys, you have like direct feedback after a specific action,
Sure.
all of those bits.
Sure.
Now, going back to indifference, when you notice they've all dried out and you have to like really pull a tooth to actually get a
Right.
call with somebody and they still don't care, there's a whole other issue. That's usually because if this user was active and
Right.
dropped, or like that audience was active and they're all churning, there's a different thing in place where they're not finding value in your product. Now, that could be a bunch of different issues. That could be maybe something happened in their company, maybe something happened in their industry, maybe there's market trend happening.
Right. Right.
Like maybe there's an obsolete effect with you, like where in your product, in your design, in your tech, like maybe something sexier
Totally.
came up and it's so much sexier, not better necessarily, it's just
Right.
sexier,
Yep.
that it just like stole your thunder. So
But if they
feedback
love
really
you, they're
depends
not
on,
leaving for that.
yeah, if they love you, they'll come to
Right.
you and be like, hey, found a better one. I'm scared of
Totally.
leaving. Like I feel like I'm breaking up with you and I don't want to. Like I've done it to a bunch of
Totally.
apps. You know what I mean?
I
Like
literally just did
I'm
that
kind of
this
loyal
week.
with products.
Yeah, I just did that this week. Like literally, I called up one of my service providers. I'm like, dude, this other thing is looking a lot better because of this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, good point. Let me call you back later. Like literally, it's like, let me get one of my engineers on a call this Friday. I'm like, let's do it. You know? So I do think that there is not everybody's like you and I though. Not everybody's as loyal to the customer or to our vendors as you and I might be. But getting that customer feedback when you're working with people as a fractional CPO, and for those that don't know, as a chief product officer, like if you don't have someone advising you on this stuff, how do you know what to do with it when you get it? Like there's a lot of people that might be getting this feedback and they don't really realize that, wow, this could really reshape my products moving forward.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about getting customer feedback, the main thing you need to understand is how do the opportunities relate to each other and how do solutions relate to each other.
Right.
So you're really having two different exercises here. You're
Yeah.
discovering a problem or you're discovering a solution.
Right.
Surveys tend to be after the fact. They're usually, or like feedback generally tends to be after the fact. So those become solution bits. How did this work well for you? Like, was it okay? Did you like it? Did you not? Problem discovery is the thing that is actually done the least. So we always say, hey, people don't talk to their customers enough. But you might be talking to their customers. You might be actually, hanging out with them after work all the time. Like that's not actually what we're talking about. So, and the ones that do better are the ones that are like, hey, I built this. How does this work for you? Like, do you like this? Or we're about to ship this feature. Hey, new enterprise client that like you asked for all of this. We did it. Does it look okay for you? That's solution discovery. And if you haven't done problem discovery, they have no idea. Whatever they say, they can't corroborate. It's just like they're fantasizing this. They can't relate it to their own needs. And then doesn't matter. Like it's just basically you're singing in the wind type of thing.
I love it. I'm working with a brand right now that's fantastic. They've got 100 locations. It's a food chain. It's a really fun, fresh Mexican food company called Costa Vida. And they have in every store all over the place QR codes to leave feedback on your experience. they're looking for negative, they're looking for positive, and they're getting both negative and positive. And that's one of the things that I really like about the brand is that they're very dialed in to what people are not liking, what they are liking, all that kind of stuff. It's been a very cool experience to see a great customer feedback loop like that. And I think that those that aren't doing it, you're going to suffer at some point for not doing it.
So there's a confirmation bias there.
Yeah.
That company you just mentioned had a good product already.
Right.
So by some mechanism, maybe luck, maybe competence, whatever it was, they got to a product people actually cared about.
Yeah.
Then they got to do after the fact feedback. So it could have been luck. Food is a lot of times with luck and creativity and just ingenuity.
Right.
But when it comes to like products and SaaS and stuff, like you really have to do problem discovery.
Yeah.
And that's the part where you're not supposed to lead, like all the stuff we've heard around product problem discovery. And you have to figure out how they relate to each other. So if the metrics of a product are telling you that, hey, this is a candidate to put in the ground, you kind of have to go back to basics. Hey, user that you just showed up, or hey, user that you were so active and loved us before. How is this problem showing up for you right now? What tools are you using? What status quo? If you're going to use nothing technical, would it be a spreadsheet? Would it be pen and paper? Like, what am I competing with? What trends are you seeing? Like, who else is having this problem? Like, who is your buying group, basically? Like, who else has influence on this problem? You're going to have to start from the problem down and then see that what you're trying to validate is a problem exists. My solution is not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
But there you might actually realize the problem doesn't exist anymore. And there you have your answer.
I've got a challenge for anyone watching this or listening to this. Leave a comment below if you know someone that does a really good job of this feedback loop with their customers. I love looking at companies that do a good job of this. And I just feel like not enough companies do this in a good way. I think a lot of it's reactive. Not a lot of it's very proactively trying to get feedback on what's working, what's not working. And so I really appreciate this part of the conversation. If you're listening right now, drop a link below of someone who's nailing this and doing it right, because I'd like to check it out. Our third topic that I want to jump into, we can transition into this, is it scalable? I think companies, a lot of companies will launch. And then in their launch, they feel like, dude, we just nailed it. We had a successful launch. We're doing $3 or $4 million a year. We're clearing good profits with this thing. How do I get to 20 million? And I think that the problem is that oftentimes that product is not scalable. What kind of things keep it from being scalable, Vahid? And how do you recommend when you're coaching someone through development of their products, how do you keep that forefront in their minds to think, okay, can I replicate this 1,000 times more than I am right now? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's an abstract model for scalability. Like a product's infinitely scalable if the inputs and the outputs are not correlated.
Interesting.
So if you want 2 outputs, you don't have to put 2 inputs. So agencies, for example, are not scalable because by this definition, you want to cater to more clients, you have to add more folks, you have to add more employees. So they scale with people. And and then you're going to have more middle managers and you get to the point that you're very bloated. So
interesting.
Agencies don't scale in terms of output, they scale in terms of margin. That's
interesting.
That's how they end up scaling. So it doesn't matter how many deals we do this year, our margin's still multiples, like not percentages anymore, because we're, Ogilvy, we've been around forever. So like agencies do a different way. But with a product, so you have 5 users, and if you do your unit economics, the cost of operating a customer is X.
Right.
If you have a 6th customer, and the cost of operating customer becomes Y. Are those predictable? You know what I mean? Did it just go up by 1, like by a 5th, just because you added a customer? Then you don't really have a scalable model. Did the cost increase? You have a descalable model. Like this is a race to the bottom. Right. But then you get into situations where it doesn't matter how many customers you have. The cost is marginal, or the cost is like 0. So that's one area. That's one like
Agreed.
opportunity area. Let's just call
Right.
it. And then there's another model where the more customers, the more interactions, just the more activity, input, whatever, cost goes down, value goes up. That's when you have like very deep defensibility. So those are like network effect models. Those are like data moats. Those are brand moats, like with an agency. So
Right.
it just becomes cheaper, easier to actually navigate all of these folks.
Which is
Like
essentially like any SaaS product fits that model of, it costs a lot of money up
any
front to develop,
any
right?
good SaaS product, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any good SaaS product, if you develop it the right way, it infinitely gets cheaper and cheaper to develop improvements because of the scaling that's happening on the output.
Yeah, I mean, like I have to be honest, like there's no right way to do a SaaS product. It's all subjective to the user, to the value, to the problem, to all those bits.
Right.
Sometimes there isn't a scalable model through those, but those end up
Interesting.
being amazing like lifestyle businesses that you don't necessarily want to scale, but you're making like 7-8 million a year and you have 20 staff. Like that's fine. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like it really depends on like the goal we're setting for this. But scalability, the easiest point of scalability shows up on acquisition.
Yeah.
Like you now have a high density of customers. Is CAC
Right.
dropping? Like it's just simply, is it dropping? Is referral happening? Like blended CAC, right? Blended CAC,
Right.
like mean or average across everybody. Is referrals are happening more than your average CAC should come down,
Right.
So like those are basically free.
Right.
Or is people coming to you because you have a brand and you've done organic really well, so like you don't have to actually spend that much, so it should come down.
Right.
Like all of these. Or are people not referring?
Yeah.
You have to spend more to get them because it's harder to get them.
Yep.
Are they trying to avoid you? You know what I mean? Are they trying to not have you find them? And then you're going to see CAC just goes up. And so that's when, I mean, we don't really talk about CAC to LTV ratio. It's kind of a metric that has been dethroned. But it's still, for the health of the company, you should check out CAC to LTV. If that flips, then that's, again, hair on fire. On CAC to LTV, just to finish this, we now measure payback period. So instead of just seeing CAC to LTV, based on the CAC that was paid and the plan this user's on, how much time does it take for them to pay off the CAC? That tends to be a better metric, but CAC to LTV is a scale signal.
It is a scale signal, but describe what you're saying this evolved into, because I still put a lot of weight into what that lifetime value is to the customer. What are you meaning? Is that time to renewal or time to what? What are you referencing there?
Well, time to renewal is a little different. So like the metrics I like to look at is one ACV, like annual contract value. How much revenue is this one customer or account making us right now?
Right.
Lifetime value would be that's kind of a churn function. It's like how long do you retain them and how much ACV, assuming ACV stays the same.
Right.
You can basically calculate this.
Right.
Then, I mean, LTV and CLV are basically the same thing.
Right.
So you do CAC to LTV, hoping that LTV increases and CAC reduces.
Sure.
That's the trend you want. You know, you want this number to be as small as possible. But if it's growing, hopefully, like if it's growing, it either means your CAC's gone up or your LTV's gone down.
Right.
Now, if both, if CAC goes up and LTV goes down, that's
time to kill that product.
Like, maybe we should kill this product. Exactly.
And that brings us back to the topic point, which is, when do you kill a product, and when should you be done pouring gas into that machine trying to get it to work when it just clearly is not going to work anymore? We talk about the masks during COVID, right? Like, it's just not a good move to keep pushing your business into selling masks right now. So COVID aside, how do people determine if the product is not scalable and the lifetime value is going down and the cost of acquisition is going up? Those are two major indicators saying, hey, you know what? We should not be looking at this. And this ties into our fourth item, which is market demand. If the market demand is not there for your product anymore, and you see that lifetime value going down and the CAC going up, people need to understand market demand kind of sucks. And
Yeah.
I should probably either do what with that? Can it be improved upon? Or do I just need to start from scratch with something else in my product lineup? What are your thoughts on that? And how do you help people make that decision?
It's an emotional decision. So
Yeah.
I either have to put my robot like heart on or my therapist hat on to deal with this issue. So like
Totally.
the robot part's like, here's all the metrics, here's all the facts. And if you extrapolate it, you're making a bunch of assumptions that these
Right.
things should improve. They haven't improved for 4 years. They're probably not going to improve.
Right.
So
Right.
this is probably what you're looking at. This is your baseline. I would bet on this. And then the therapist hat is, how much do you love this? If it goes away, how do you feel? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's okay to cry. Like, and I'm not kidding. Like, these are some of the things that I actually talk about because, like, it's emotional. It's kind of your baby. I can tell you a story. This is something that I actually dealt with a little bit ago. I will spare all the names. But
sounds good.
right before COVID, market was in a boom. Everybody, like all offices were full. Commercial
Sure.
real estate was the index was just, multiplying itself.
Right.
And then COVID happened and everything, just the work
Right.
from home started just replacing everything else. This changed the market for all these companies that were commute ride shares. There was a pretty significant market of commute ride share companies.
Right.
So it can be from your company down. Yeah, it's B2B to C or B2C.
Right.
So it was actually kind of a sweet model. Now, one of my close friends held on to his company. It was still working. He was smart enough to sign a pretty long-term lease with one of the bigger names in consulting. They were
Right.
still paying for it. They were hopeful that people will come back, and they spread out all the desks and stuff, but nobody came back.
Wow.
And there was a time that he started having like private equity knock on his door. They just wanted to buy for parts. So all
Right.
these signals showed up.
Right.
CAC was infinite because nobody was coming in.
Right.
Retention was like 0. Churn was 100% because like nobody was coming in again.
Crazy.
And all the clients he had were trying to just get out of the contracts, literally pointing to their empty buildings. It took a while. It took a while to accept that is not a thing anymore.
Right.
And all the all the data was pointing the right way. But again, it was an emotional thing. Like he built something that had such a product market fit for such a short amount of time.
Right.
And it's almost like chasing a high, like wanting to get that back. I'm happy to say that, he did give it away. He did have like a very small like liquidation.
At least he was able to do that.
Yeah, he was smart enough to actually just like get in on a private equity roll up that we're actually rolling up a lot of these. But I can tell you the entire market, and that's like a sub market kind of thing, like a sub market, that shrunk by probably a factor of 20, or like it's something that is just negligible. Like that market's negligible right now.
Well,
So,
I was
very obvious to kill.
Yeah. No, I was in that position during COVID, right at the beginning of COVID. I had a really sweet lifestyle business going on that I fell into that was like, it was awesome. Like it was really, really awesome. And I put all my eggs into that basket because it was just for the first time in 20 plus years, I needed very little overhead. I had very few employees, and it was just like this magic money machine that I was like, this is pretty awesome ride. And within a week, 1 week at the end of February 2020, literally the entire basket fell out. And it was, I tried to like, I tried to tweak it so that we were doing things virtual, and it just was stupid. And I had no liquidation out of that. In fact, I'm stupid enough to still be hanging on that someday I should probably go kick that thing back on. And I'm paying for a storage unit in the Bay Area for all that gear. And my wife's like, how long are we going to keep paying for that? I'm like, I don't know. I just hated to see it go. You know what I mean? It's an emotional connection that I'm still in the back of my head hanging on to, even though I have no actions taking me to push that product again now that things have recovered. So emotion is such a real thing in business, and you've got to think, do I put the robot on, or do I talk to a therapist and get things dialed in so that I know what decision to make? But one of the key things that I think people need to realize is that sometimes that product can be improved upon when market conditions change. If market conditions change and you can tweak it and it actually works, sometimes that thing becomes better than it was. And sometimes it's just unsalvageable. Recognize that when it is, take the exit if you can get one. If not, hurry up and figure things out.
Yeah, for larger companies, this problem has a few more dimensions.
Yeah.
So sometimes this piece of the product is not strategic. They generally have like a product portfolio, and this thing might be an anti-portfolio, or it just doesn't fit the new direction.
Interesting.
So this thing is not strategic anymore. We basically have to, there's no economies of scale. We have to have separate teams to run this. It basically becomes like a separate division.
Right.
And if not dealt with, it becomes a bastardized product.
Yeah.
Those are great times to sell them.
Yeah.
There would be a different company, or as a separate entity, this could actually be an okay business. And somebody might be more than happy to recapitalize it and run it and everything else.
Yeah. No,
this is the part that bugs me the most, because I'm like, I can see this. Who is here so tied to this that can't let go? And then you find them and you're like, they love this too much. Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Isn't that
sometimes
funny?
This happens.
Yeah.
Honestly, it happens so much. It happens a lot. So one is strategic. The other one is just resource allocation.
Yeah.
So something else, some other part of the company, maybe we just discovered it, or it compounded to a point that is so valuable, should have all our attention, should get all our love. We should put everybody on it, all the best people. And now we don't have a lot of great people to lead this. We might have ICs, like individual contributors, to still run something, but we don't have a thinker on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both resource and strategic reasons, which they're related. Those are some of the reasons most companies should actually reduce their product lines. But the thing is, the companies that have these problems are the type of companies that are just feature factories. They'll just build and build and build, and it doesn't matter. And they'll just keep on. That's how you get Skype.
I love it.
That's how you get Skype.
Right. I agree. And, every time I work with new companies, I run a workshop where we discuss this topic for about an hour with the attendees. And it's very interesting because, when we launch a business, oftentimes you're just like think of that analogy of the rocket taking off, right? There's just so much propulsion coming out of that rocket. But once it finally gets to altitude, it stops trying to do everything and focuses on the thing that it was designed to do, right? And I think that we see a lot of companies that will launch and push lots of different iterations of their product out while they're launching. They don't know how to let go of the stuff that's draining resources and honing it into the stuff that should be their focus point. And so, as you and I have had this discussion, I keep thinking of that rocket analogy because I think that there's just a spray of stuff that they're doing. And you've given some really, really valuable advice on how to hone in on what is replicatable, what are your customers saying they like, what are things that they think could possibly change, are they willing to talk about it to other people, is there demand still for that thing? All these things that we just talked about give value to people who are trying to figure out how to do this game and how to focus on the stuff that really matters. So
100%.
With that being said, Vahid, what is it that you offer, and what is it that you could offer as a last bit of advice to people to be thinking about the enhancement of their product lineup?
So I love where you took it, because there's a piece that I left out to say at the end, that we might not think of ourselves as product managers, founders, operators. They're oh, we're not in that state. We should let this go.
Right.
We should not pay too much attention to this. We're not at the point that we're going to sunset a product.
Right.
But the thing is, exactly to the rocket analogy you gave, before product market fit, you're going to build a lot of stuff. You're going to experiment with a lot, on all departments of the company. You're going to say so many things to see which ones are catching more signal. But you get to a point that the company itself is healthy, it's growing well,
Right.
like metrics are all like up to the right. And you that's the point where we say product market fit signals are strong. That's
Yeah.
literally the sentence we use at that point. Now, for you to actually get to product market fit, you need to purge.
Yeah.
It's the same function as killing a product. Killing a
Right.
feature you go through the same motions basically.
Sure.
But that's when you're going to have to upset a few customers because they're not the highest value customer.
Right.
You're going to have to change your positioning, your messaging. You're going to deprecate a bunch of content pieces because they're talking about the piece that you're going to kill.
Yep.
Just so you can put all the resources you had in the most valuable part of the company because that thing has fits. A friend of mine has a like business to business payments company. You can think of it as like wire transfers evolved.
Cool.
Initially, they did everything to everybody. And then they reduced it. After so much experimentation, they reduced it. We only do it for Canada. And we only do it for these kind of businesses. And we only do it for these kind of payments.
Yeah.
That company went like it basically 8x'd. Like after reduction, it 8x'd.
Wow.
So that's the path to get to product market fit. Reduction, purging is the path to get to product market fit.
And
product
Vahid,
market fit is in the connective tissue, but you have too many limbs, connective tissue will break onto itself.
and what you just said, it means so much to me because I really feel like the second part of this, which is a whole different discussion that we're actually going to do, I think next week or the week after, is literally how do you determine of your existing client base, which ones do you actually like working with versus the ones that are your headache? And how do you eliminate those people and keep the people that make you happy and you like doing fulfillment for? You know what I mean? It's what you just talked about 8xing your revenue by eliminating some of the ancillary products is such an amazing story to tell because people are afraid to lose that small client base. It's the loudest part of their audience and really grab onto the thing that people love and you just multiply and do it better.
100%. Couldn't agree
Love
more.
it. Dude, what a fun conversation. For those of you who have listened to this or have been part of the conversation, leaving notes in the comments, thank you for being a part of it. Vahid, thank you for being a part of the show today. And for those that don't know in his name tag there, fractionalcpo.com is his URL. That's where you can find him, which is where you can learn more about what he does. And I'm telling you right now, 5 years ago, there really wasn't such a thing as a chief product officer. It's something that you need to consider, especially a fractional guy like this who can come in and evaluate what you've got going on, what you should be eliminating, what you should probably do to enhance what you're already doing to make it more profitable, better, bigger, better, badder. All that stuff is so important to think about. So Vahid, thanks for your time today. And for those listening, reach out to him right now, figure out what it's all about. Any closing comments there?
Oh man, I love our conversations. We've had a few of these so far, so thanks for having me on the show. This topic is really fun. This is not a topic openly discussed because it's a little grim.
It really isn't.
You're gonna have to face it. You know what I mean? I love that we actually got to dig into it.
You're gonna have to face it.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate you.
You bet. And like always, this show was sponsored by captainscouncil.com. Check it out if you haven't done so already. It is an advisory board built with people like you, active CEOs and founders who are actively running a business who just need a group to dump on and a group that they can help and a group that understands what they're going through right now. Oftentimes, you and me both, Vahid, get in this circle of using advisors who are has-beens, someone who's been out of their business operations for more than 10 years, and it just isn't that helpful. Get advice from people who are actively running right now in our environment and these conditions and can actually give you advice that's reasonable, actionable, and awesome. That's captainscouncil.com. Thanks so much for being, again, a part of this in any way, shape, or form, and we'll catch up with you later.